All right, class, as we continue to work with roots, we're going to be trying in this video to learn how to estimate non-perfect squares. Now, I've emphasized memorizing your perfect squares, where you know the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, and so on. Even some of your perfect cubes, the cube root of 8 is 2, the cube root of 27 is 3. But I also emphasize in class that we use the calculator that's sitting between our ears. And so when we deal with square roots, it's so tempting, especially as we move into high school math, just to use the calculator. And I'm not knocking that. Yes, we're going to use the calculator a lot. But in pre-algebra, one of the things that is so helpful is to learn how to utilize your brain and your mental math abilities to estimate an answer like this, estimate the answer to a question like this. And the reason that's so important is because often, and I have seen this many, many times, a student will crank something out on their calculator and it will give them an incorrect answer, but they won't pay enough attention to realize that the answer is just nonsensical. And so the ability to estimate something like the square root of 7 is going to be very helpful. So I'm going to give you a little process that we've been working on in class, but I hope this review will help. If we want to estimate mentally the square root of 7, in other words, what is it approximately? And I can't emphasize that we are estimating. We are not trying to get to the exact answer or I should say, rather than exact, a lengthy decimal answer. I'm really just looking for something to the nearest tenth. Now, you can use this process to take it to the hundreds or the thousands or further. But I don't think that's very helpful. So what about the square root of 7? This is what I want you to think about. Think about it on a number line. And we're going to say that this spot right here is the square root of 7. I want you to go to the left and to the right and find the nearest perfect square. So in this case, let's go to the left, and the nearest perfect square is going to be a 4. All right, because we know that the square root of 4 is 2. That's going to be a helpful thing. So let's stop right here. When I go to the left, I know that's the square root of 4 is my first easy one, right? I know that's 2. Well, what about when I go to the right? I know the next one is going to be the square root of 9. So here's my two perfect squares. And so the two perfect squares that are going to help me solve this. So if I'm estimating the square root of 7, I know that it has to be somewhere between 2 and 3. Now think about that for just a moment. That makes sense, I hope. I'm utilizing my perfect squares, which I've memorized. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. 7, the number 7 is between the number 4 and 9. So the result of the square root of 7 is going to have to be somewhere in between 2 and 3. So now here we use a little bit more estimating skills. Is 7 closer to 4 or closer to 9? Well, it's closer to 9, isn't it? And so what if we just want to try a couple of numbers? And let's see, what would we want to try first? Why don't we try 2.7? Let's try 2.7 first. That looks about logical, right? I'm somewhere between 2 and 3. I'm closer over here to the 9. So why don't I'll just draw a line right there, and we'll try 2.7. Now, again, we're estimating, we're kind of guessing at this point, is 2.7 the square root of 7? Well, think back to working backwards. So if I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to work from my root, which this is the estimated root of 7, then I'm going to need to square it to work backwards. Well, what's 2.7 squared? Well, that's 7.29. All right, well, now that gives us something to work with. This number right here, it is greater than 7. All right, 7 is our radicand. 7 right here. This is the 7 I'm talking about right there. 7.29 is higher than that. And so what I'm really looking for when I'm estimating the root of a number like 7, I want to get as close as I can to the radicand, or 7, without going over. But I'm really close. So why don't we just try 2.6? And again, I'm estimating 2.6 to be the root of or to the root of 7. So I know my step to work backwards then, in a sense, is to square both sides. And 2.6 squared is 6.76. And that's less than 7. And so what we're going to say then is, okay, I'm going to be able to say that I can estimate it's going to be approximately root 7 is going to be approximately 2.6. Now we all want to know, does that actually work? All right, well, this is when you can check yourself with your handy dandy calculator. So what is it if we use our calculator? The square root of 7 is approximately 2.645. Now that's using your calculator. This number here is using your calculator, and I'd say we're pretty close. Okay, we are pretty close. Now, my hope is that you're at a point when you can scratch out 2.7 or 2.6 off to the side relatively quickly. Sometimes you'll hear these problems and you can do them in your head. Other times you can scratch it out real quick, but it helps you to know approximately what that square root value is. Now think about if you're doing some higher level math and you punch in something like the square root of 7 into your calculator and you're trying to get something approximate, but you mistype, your thumb gets in the way, and all of a sudden you get 26.45 and you just scratch it down. My hope is that being able to do this more mentally, if you will, you're going to be able to see that, oh, I know what this answer should about be. Okay, where should I be close? And look, if you can do this, it's just going to help your overall math skills. Let's try one more. And so we're looking at the square root of 27. And so if I go to my left, that's going to be the square root of 25. If I go to my right, that's going to be the square root of 36. So I know my answer. I know that the square root of 27 is going to be somewhere between 5 and 6. It's going to be somewhere on this number line right there. Now 27 is a lot closer to 25, so I'm going to say it's probably on this side. I know it's going to be the low end between 5 and 6. Hey, what if we just try? Let's start off with, we're just trying some numbers. What if I try 5.1? I'm going to square 5.1 because, again, this is the root, and I want to see. I'm looking for 5.1 to the 5.1. When I square it, I'm looking for it to be as close as I can to 27 without going over. So in this case, 5.1 squared is 27.04. That's a 0.04. All right, it barely went over. So why don't we just try 5. You know what? All right, I need to back up here really quick. That's not true, okay? That is not true. So we're going to try 5.2 as well. Now 5.2 squared is 27.04. So I went just over. 5.1 squared is 26.01. And so what this is an example of, we could come back up and say we can estimate the square root of 27. You know, we could say that it's about 5.1. But really, when you look at it on your calculator, it's going to be 5.196. So you can see here, you're really close between the 5.1 and 5.2. All right, but this is reasonable. We could say that it's about 5.1. Again, all we're doing is estimating. We're not, I joke in class, we're not trying to build a bridge or to launch a rocket. In this case, we're doing some mental math, and we're just trying to get close. And so I hope this video helps. This is actually an important skill to help you just develop that mental math component that honestly a lot of students struggle with, but it will overall help your math skills. I hope this helps, guys.